Companies are leading the net zero strategy globally. When your corporate is seeking advice on sustainability, especially when it comes to climate change compliance, you need an advisor. Our next speaker is from Engeco, a consulting firm which specializes in offering clear, achievable strategies to help companies, NGOs, and governments prepare for their major transition to a low-carbon alternative energy future. Technical Director Mark Allen has 2 decades of experience in energy and emission management under his belt. Mark has navigated many companies in their net zero journey, turning visions into reality.
Hi everyone, I'm here with Mark Allen, the Technical Director of Engeco and also the co-founder of Unravel Carbon. Hi Mark, thanks very much for joining us today. Thank you. So I just wanted to have a couple of questions today about carbon capture technology. So number one, if a company wanted to reduce their carbon emissions by 25% by 2030, what would you advise as the first steps?
Well, so first step really when we're doing that is actually figuring out where your emissions are coming from. Yeah. So let's do a proper emissions inventory looking at what's called your scope 1 emissions, your direct emissions, any scope 2 emissions, indirect from energy, and then scope 3, all other indirects, right? Yeah. So then once we know where those emissions are coming from, where the hotspots are, we can identify decarbonisation pathways for those.
Awesome, cool. And does one select carbon capture technologies based on the industrial gases present in the emissions?
Yeah, so if carbon capture is a viable opportunity for you, so let's say you've got a really big direct emission source somewhere within your facility. So if that's a viable opportunity for you, then yeah, the mix of gases that are within that exhaust stream are very important for selecting CCS technology and capture technology in particular. So, and there's a few ways we can do this. There's a number of different ways in which we can capture CO2 from an exhaust stream, and that depends a little bit on the concentration of CO2, concentration of any contaminants that are in there, how much, say, nitrogen is in there, if it's a flue gas stream or exhaust gas stream or something like that. So yeah, that sort of information is actually quite critical in the technical design and selection of your equipment.
Yeah, great, thank you. And I guess looking at where we're at the moment, what would you say are the most popular carbon capture technologies that are around currently?
Yeah, most commonly used at the moment is the amine capture technology, which is basically a great big amine scrubbing tower where we put gas in through the bottom and we have amine coming down through the top, and the CO2 gets selectively absorbed onto the amine stream, so it goes into the liquid form. And then what we do have is a regeneration circuit just off to the other side where we separate out the CO2. So then what that gives you is a relatively pure CO2 stream coming off the top of that. Very few things carried over, maybe a bit of methane, etc. So that has been very popular in the natural gas industry in particular. Every LNG facility itself has got an amine scrubbing system in it to get the CO2 down to the 50 parts per million you need for liquefaction, right? So you remove most of it there. So very mature technology, widely used, relatively cheap, good selectivity. Other sorts of technologies that are now coming to the fore, we can have things like membrane technology, right? So the membranes themselves, there's sort of little particles that capture onto CO2 and hold onto it. And let that pass through the membrane to give you pure CO2 on one side and all the other stuff on the other side. That's a lot better for a cruder separation, so you don't get as much CO2 out. Sometimes you need multi-stages, but also a lower footprint. So in the context of something like the gas industry, you could employ membrane technology offshore, for example, because it's smaller and weighs less.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, thanks very much for your time today. I think that's all we've got time for. I hope everyone else found it as interesting as I did. So back over to you, Janish.
Thank you, Matthew and Mark, for explaining some of the carbon capture technology options available. For listeners in the industry, you would know some CCS technologies are already at mature stage for emission-intensive applications, such as gas processing, hydrogen production in SMR, in ammonia production. Most advanced and widely adopted carbon capture technologies are chemical absorption and physical separation. However, membrane separation, calcium and chemical looping, oxy-fuel separation are some technologies in pre-commercial stage. There are industry applications where there is immediate need to mature certain CCUS technology, such as coal-fired power plant, clinker production in cement industry, where we see projects reach conclusion of piloting, prototyping, or demonstration stage. It's essential to collaborate early with a reliable and experienced partner like Engeco, who understands the technology landscape to fit your application.